I want you to take a second. We're going to do a bit of a reflection exercise. I want you to think of a time when you had a passion for something, a desire, a dream, something that you wanted to live out. Take a second, pause the video if you have to, and think about that thing, that desire. I want to ask you this question. What stopped you from doing it? If you don't know, then you have found yourself in the perfect place. Because today, we are talking about experience. My name is Caleb.
I'm Jenny.
And these are stories rooted in transformation. I want to first start off by defining what we think experience means. And this is something that Jenny and I had really conversated on and came to the terms that experiences are nothing more than voluntary actions that we choose to take on. Mm-hmm. That is what experiences are. The idea of experiences are so crucial for the transformation process. In fact, I would venture to say that experiences are the backbone of transformation. Because without experiences and without experience, the things that you want to do, your desires, all of those things are nothing more than the concepts that they originated as. And they remain in that format until you get out and say, I'm going to commit to experience.
There's no growth without experience.
No, none whatsoever. I think that's the ultimate goal, right? Is to grow.
Yeah.
And a plant doesn't grow without photosynthesis. And that is, in my opinion, well, I guess it's not my opinion, it's a scientific fact. Like, that's the experience that a plant has to go through in order to nourish itself.
Yeah. And I think we should know that these experiences aren't necessarily going to always be positive ones.
Right. I think the concept of experience is a very umbrella term. Experience is nothing more than repeated actions. You can't associate good, bad, or ugly with experience, because what is experience?
No, it's subjective.
It's a voluntary, actionable pursuit to a desire, and maybe that will require bad experiences. Maybe that will require good experiences. But
it's unique, and everyone's experiences are different.
For sure. I mean,
we might do the same challenge, but the way that I experience the challenge and the way that you experience the challenge are going to be two totally different ways.
Yes, that's for sure. That is for sure. And if we're talking about the experience of transformation, this will be a word that I probably say a million times today. We are both gonna, you have your pursuit of transformation. I have my pursuit of transformation. That's the overarching common desire. It's going to be two totally different things on the basis of what? On the basis of what we want our outcome to be, on the basis of what we want to get out of the transformation, on our next steps after it, all those things. Experiences are very unique. And so you said something that, again, I always am going to bring it back to this because it's what I'm going to do for a living. It's my life. It's all I do every day. I wake up and it's like consumes me. But you said something. You said that our experiences are going to be unique. Mm-hmm. Let's take it back. Ready? Remember what I had asked in the beginning. I want you to come up with a time that you had a dream or a desire. I want you to think of that time. And then I asked, what prevented you from doing that? in the psychology field, we say that the very thing that prevented you from doing that is a past experience. The very thing that prevented you from not pursuing it was because there were feelings that were resistant to that desire. And these feelings have been developed because of past experience. We call this the psychodynamic theory. I wrote it down, my definition of it, just because I wanted to get it right. I didn't want to say something different. Basically, I guess I didn't write it down. But one thing that a lot of, well, I'll get to that in a second, because that's a whole nother thing. But essentially what psychodynamic theory is it is your internal perception of the world based on past experiences and relationships. So the psychodynamic theorists who came up with it essentially said, well, first it started with a guy that everybody knows, whether you are a psychologist or whether you are a social worker or anything in the helping profession or not. Everybody knows the name Sigmund Freud. Everybody knows that name. He is the father of psychodynamic theory. Mm-hmm. It started with his perception of individuals and their sexual desires and aggressions leading to behavioral patterns, which later then got developed into psychodynamic theory on a multitude of different psychologists who believed in Freud's theory, but then reshaped it into, it has nothing to do with sexual desires and aggressions, rather influence based on past experiences, past influences from people who matter to you. All those things are what shape behavioral patterns in human experience. And so, why do I bring that up? Because there's another psychologist whose name is Carl Gustav, and he studied depth psychology. And depth psychology looks into this idea of how do we get to this ultimate understanding of self-actualization and authenticity. And the only way he believes that you can do that, and I tend to believe this as well, is through psychological growth. That is what is the most important, is you have to learn what it means to grow psychologically in order to develop this idea of self-actualization and complete self-authenticity and individuality. I don't want to keep talking. I would like to kind of hear your input on it, but there's so much more that I'm going to integrate throughout this conversation.
Well, I want to ask, which you're probably going to talk about it. So what exactly does psychological growth entail? What does that look like? Is it different based on the individual? Is there some scientific proof, scientific research that shows that, psychological growth looks the same in all of our brains?
So I want to first say this. Anytime we use the word theory, mm-hmm. again, it's a concept that somebody had come up with. And the more popular a theory, the more people accept it, but it doesn't become universal knowledge, and therefore it can't necessarily be looked at as reality. So I don't want to say that what I'm expressing is facts. This is simply somebody with a lot of influence who developed a theory that a lot of people can, again, uniquely
relate to
or agree with. Because they use their own discernment. So that's what I'm doing. I'm basing this theory based on morals that I have, based on my belief systems, based on my opinions, but is one that a lot of people share and is one that I actually think is true. So depth psychology is a thing. It's the study of deep subconscious thoughts, things that we don't even recognize, which ties into psychodynamic theory, which was an influence of depth psychology. But then Carl Gustav has this perspective that the only way to self-actualization and psychological growth is accomplished, or through psychological growth, then to answer your question, is accomplished through personal experience.
Which looks different for everyone. So, for example, with me, like we were talking about this right before, is I have this fear of not being perfect. And it stops me from accomplishing a lot of things. I'll start a project and then I get frustrated because I'm not good at it. And so I give up. Kind of like with golf.
Yeah.
I'm terrible. I'm terrible at golf. And we actually played 18 holes yesterday, and I was getting increasingly frustrated to the point that I was throwing my clubs.
Yep.
I was getting so angry. I was trying to be perfect. Every single time I would miss the ball or just not hit it well, I'm like, Caleb, what am I doing wrong? And he's like, I could tell you everything you're doing wrong, but you're focusing too much on what you're doing wrong instead of just enjoying yourself.
Yeah.
I'm putting way too much pressure on myself.
Yeah.
I just put way too much pressure on myself in like every aspect of my life, and it cripples me on, actually. It like physically and mentally cripples me because I am unable sometimes to complete tasks because of this fear of failure or this fear of not being perfect. But I think that once we get rid of that fear, we will feel freedom.
Yeah, certainly. And I want to go back to this, what Carl Gustav was saying, because it ties into exactly your struggle. And one of the things that he likes to say is that experience is important in the journey of transformation because it allows for you to create a reality on the basis of personal experience, which is crucial for growth. And so the juxtaposition is this. Option one, your decision to live out experiences. That's your first option. You have the decision to live out your experiences. Or option two, you can apathetically allow for society to shape your experiences. And so that's what a lot of people do, because you're not the only one that struggles with that. I'm sure people watching also struggle with that. With the idea of not continuing something on the basis of needing to be perfect because they fear what other people are going to think about them. Because going back to psychodynamic theory, this is something that there have been past experiences and relationships that have shaped this way of thinking. Or lack of relationship, because that's something else. And that's attachment theory, and that's a whole other thing that we don't need to even get into. But those are all very real things into developing or not wanting to experience experiences, which is weird that experiences are an experience within itself, right? But those are the two things. You can actively make the decision to say the experiences that I'm going to live out are going to shape me, or I'm going to apathetically allow for society to shape my own experiences. But either way, because of our innate desire to survive, those are the two options we have. We can either allow for society to shape our way of growth and development, or we can be a little bit rebellious, be a little bit go against the grain a little bit to shape our own experiences, to stand out and say, nope, I'm gonna experience things for what they are, and I'm going to allow for that to shape me. That is this idea of psychological growth.
Yeah, and I'm remembering from, I think it was 2 episodes ago, you talked about tell me again that part of the brain that I can never,
The mid-cingulate.
yeah, that one. Well,
Pre-
tell our
the
viewers.
anterior mid-cingulate cortex.
And you talked about how it grows, right? Whenever we do things that are hard, right? So that's part of experience. It's part of everyone's experience, is doing things that we do not want to do, doing things that are difficult for us, doing things that we're probably going to fail at,
Yeah.
you know?
Because failure is experience.
Yeah.
Remember, we said at the beginning, experience can be good, it can be bad, it can be ugly, but experience is very objective. So everybody's experiences are going to look different, but the concept of experience is very objective. It doesn't hold what it doesn't hold. There's no emotion connected to that word. The definition is just voluntary action.
Right.
And that can look like a million things. But the most important thing is experience. So yeah. So here's the ultimatum. From a psychological standpoint, this is the ultimatum. You can either live out personal experience and grow. You can either live out personal experience and grow, or live within the parameters of conformity and the parameters of conforming to societal norms and follow.
Right.
Those are your two options. You're either going to follow the crowd, or you're going to develop your own thoughts through experience. There's nothing else to it.
And I think so many people live their life on autopilot, and they have this idea of, conforming to society and living life the way that society tells them to live it. But they're not truly happy. They're just going through the motions.
Yep. They're living on the basis of contentment.
Mm-hmm.
They're living on the basis of safety.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I don't want people to think that I'm saying that structure is not important. Because I think structure is very important. In fact, experience is so important because from the very day that we were born into parameters, structure, and conformity. We were given our name. We were given roles. Mm-hmm. We were being told what to do and what not to do, what's healthy for us, what's not healthy for us, what's safe for us to do, what's not safe for us to do. Mm-hmm. Our whole lives, we went to school and there was rules in school and our whole lives are based on parameters, structure, and conformity. But that's healthy. Those are good things.
But we get to define our parameters.
Once we understand how to do it productively.
Sure.
Because I think structure is important. I think what we learned in school and all of those things are shaping our experience. Remember, psychodynamic theory. All of those things shape our experiences. All the relationships we develop shape our experiences. And so school's a part of that.
Right.
Because there are people that don't go to school and their present day behavioral patterns are going to be a lot more unproductive than somebody who has had structure that has shaped their ability to define their own parameters, right? It becomes a problem when everything we do is influenced by society. If all you are ever doing is getting approval from people, you need to check yourself. Because chances are you're not living out experiences.
Right.
You're living out societal norms and societal conformity. In that regard, it's a problem. In that regard, you then think, oh man, it would be great if I could just travel the world, or it would be great if I could just, start that business or start that channel to help people with exercise, and then then you read a comment section of somebody else's Instagram page, and it's like, oh, look at Fat McGee over here, or whatever the comments say, or and then it's like, oh, well, shoot, I don't want to do that. Like,
Yeah.
okay, so that's fine, but you're not living out you're not experiencing it. It's only going to ever remain a concept.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that about the comment, because you were so excited. Like, you were just yearning for us to have a hater,
Yeah.
And I know we touched upon this already, but we don't have haters that we know of. But we definitely had some people challenge us. And
Yep.
we want that. We welcome it,
Absolutely. Absolutely, because that's an experience.
Yeah.
And then another thing about it, and this is for somebody who is desiring and longing for this transformation, which, by the way, transformation is anything. It is starting a podcast. Mm-hmm. It is starting to run. It is desiring to lose weight. It is wanting to hike Mount Everest. It is whatever. All those things are a transformation journey. And so when you publicly live out those experiences, Carl Gustav and Carl Jung, who is another psychologist, we don't got to get into what he believes, but, well, I'll get into a little bit of what he believes because it's important based on what we're touching on, societal norms and stuff. He believed in this idea of universal and collective thinking. And I mean, that goes into the idea of how psychodynamic theory came to understand, past experiences shaping your present behavioral patterns. But anyway, people who do not live out an experience that that they desire, will project. In the psychological field, we call that transference. Transference literally means projecting onto another person because of past experiences. So, say there's somebody who has that same desire as you, but you're living it out. The first thing that they're going to do is project their feelings onto you. And you can do one of two things. You can conform to societal norms, which is nothing more than, by Carl Jung's standards, universal thinking that shapes this transference. So you can either conform to those societal norms, or you can recognize, hey, this might be a part of the experience, is feeling that resistance.
Right.
But the only way that you're going to get to that is by experiencing experience.
Yep.
So, yes, experience is a term, but it's also a verb.
Yeah.
Experience is an action. And you have to experience. So,
Caleb, talking about experience, right? And if you're not ready to transition into this, we don't have to, but you talked about doing or experiencing this 120-day challenge, right? And you created a countdown for us. What is your hope for this challenge?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we'll get into that towards the end. We're going to introduce the challenge because it's the last thing that we really want to touch on and close this video with, because it'll kind of be like the starting line, But for this 120-day challenge, the hope is that for 120 days, you commit to experience the experience is the transformation journey. Mm-hmm. It goes purpose, transformation, and then you need discipline and humbleness in between. But that's why we touch on discipline and humbleness, because it's important to emphasize that before we emphasize experience.
Right.
Because you have to understand discipline, you have to understand humbleness before you can understand what it means to properly experience.
Sure.
It goes purpose, transformation, your result. And that's what this 120 days is committing to. Is saying, for 120 days, I'm going to do something every single day to get to my ultimate goal of transformation, whatever it is. We'll introduce it more at the end and go over the rules and all that stuff that we have set out, but that's the challenge. For 120 days, I'm going to commit every single day to understanding what it takes to get to my desired version of transformation. And those 120 days are the experience.
I like it.
But we'll get to it at the end. We'll like break it down and explain it. It won't be long. It's very simple. And then we'll go over our own desires for what we're going to do. Because we
And
got
our challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were talking before this though, and you had mentioned Moses and how Moses is the epitome of experience, and we didn't touch on it, but I'm kind of curious what you meant by that.
So, in Exodus, Moses, it talks about, the story of how God revealed Moses' calling through the burning bush. And even when he felt and saw this revelation, he was still hesitant. He was scared, he was afraid of his shortcomings. He's like, God, what if I'm not good enough? He actually he tells God that, I am short in speech and tongue, right? He's afraid that he is not going to be able to convince Pharaoh. He's afraid that he's not going to be able to convince people to follow him. Okay? So he's making all these excuses to not live out his calling. And the Lord still used him, okay, to free his people. So, that's kind of what I gathered and remembered from the story of Moses. But he was one person that definitely I immediately thought of when we said experience. God is able to work through us, even through our shortcomings, even through our fear. So I think that's something that shouldn't stop us.
Oh yeah, I was going to say that.
It's something that, he's going to call upon, the Lord is going to call upon unqualified people, and he's going to qualify us.
Yep.
You don't have to have it all together. Nope. You don't have to be successful, according to society. Because success in his eyes looks different.
Yeah, I was going to say, and it's so funny, a lot of the Bible talks about not conforming to the ways of the world, but operating outside of that. And in this case, it's referring to Christianity. It's referring to your faith and your belief. But there's a lot of truth to it at the secular level as well. And I think that it's so cool to see when at the spiritual level and at the Christianity level, you're also seeing those qualities in the secular side of things. Like it's almost like God's working in the background, and these people who aren't yet believers are still living by the words of the Bible. And you see them work for individuals who decide to commit to the ways of the Bible without knowing that they're doing so.
Right.
And that's a great example. Not like by societal standards, me and you are not qualified to be in this camera. Why? Because we didn't go to a 4-year school and get a communications degree and write, theses on, the effects of talking in front of a camera to,
we're not media trained.
We're not media trained.
Yeah.
I'm probably not the most politically correct individual.
I'm petrified of public speaking, petrified of stumbling over my words, saying the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Just before this, I was crying because I'm like, what if I'm not good enough?
Yeah.
And I struggle with that every day.
Yeah, and it goes back to what the Bible is saying. Like, there's so many unqualified people that are becoming qualified through experience.
Through experience, yeah.
Because why? Because God uses your experiences to qualify you. And the only way you're going to be able to live that out is by what?
By experiencing.
By experiencing. And so that actually brings me to a person in the Bible. And his name is Timothy. And Timothy was I guess, I don't want to use the word next in line, but there's probably a better word for it. But basically, the Apostle Paul was his mentor. He was the next in line, like to Paul.
His predecessor?
Predecessor would be a good word, yeah. And the thing about Timothy, though, was, and by the way, Timothy is known as a great leader of the Bible, known as a very young leader. But this is what made Timothy feel like he was unqualified,
right,
and express it to Paul all the time. He was scared of experiencing leadership because he felt like he was unqualified, because he felt like he was too young to cater to people. He was scared of congressional backlash, like, churches basically resisting what he was going to say. He was scared of religious persecution because it was such a relevant thing at that time,
right,
due to Christianity being a new concept,
right,
or Jesus, I guess. Jesus's teachings being a new concept. So he was scared of religious persecution. And Paul, I'll read it in 2 Timothy. 2 Timothy 1:7. He stated, for God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline. And what Paul's doing is he's encouraging him, saying what you said, which was, the Lord will take the most unqualified and use them to move mountains. But the only way that can happen is through experience.
right.
And now Timothy is known as one of the greatest leaders. But he had to move past his fear of unqualification and his fear of societal norms in order to become this fierce young leader who led a lot of people to the Lord.
Yeah, and part of what takes us through our experiences is faith. And that doesn't necessarily, for those of you that, don't necessarily have a relationship with the Lord, that doesn't only mean faith, in a spiritual way, right? It could be just belief and faith in yourself, that, the outcome of this experience is, or I'm going to get to that outcome of this experience, no matter what it takes, But for us, as Christians, I think that faith for us is different, Faith for us means going through that experience, knowing that you're not going through it alone, knowing that it doesn't matter, like, how gruesome the experience might be. Who I actually just thought of thinking about gruesome and experience? Paul and Silas, when they were in that jail cell, and they were praising while they were in the jail cell, and the earth began to shake. So there's this earthquake. It rocks all of the the infrastructure of the jail cell, and they're able to escape. But guess what? They didn't immediately run out, because they knew that someone was watching their experience. They planted a seed in that jailer's life that day.
Yeah.
Well, throughout that whole experience.
Yeah.
Okay? And they used that experience to plant a seed.
It's so funny that you just were talking about that, and I had to pull this up, because listen to what Paul said. I'm getting chills. talking about experience. And I'm glad this conversation went in this direction, because we're talking about societal norms and how don't let that influence your experience and live out your own unique experience. And it's important, and God is going to take the unqualified, make them qualified through experience. And this is what Paul said to Timothy. So never be ashamed to tell others about our Lord, and do not be ashamed of me either, even though I'm in prison I'm going to read it again. So never be ashamed to tell others about our Lord, and don't be ashamed of me either, even though I'm in prison for him. With the strength God gives you, be ready to suffer with me for the sake of the good news. For God saved us and called us to live a holy life. He did this not because we deserve it, but because that was his plan from before the beginning of time, to show us his grace through Jesus Christ. And now he has made all of this plain to us by the appearing of Christ Jesus, our Savior. He broke the power of death and illuminated the way of life and immortality through the good news. And God chose me to be a preacher, an apostle, and a teacher of this good news. This is why I'm suffering here in prison. But I am not ashamed of it, for I know the one whom I trust. I am sure that he is able to guard what I have entrusted to him until the day of his return. His faith has carried him through this.
Right.
The experience of Christ Jesus influenced. I can't even put into words how many people it's influenced. You want to talk about a bad experience? The crucifixion.
Yeah.
But that experience influenced people to go to prison for this truth. Influenced Paul to write to people from prison like Timothy so that he could influence Timothy to partake in an experience.
Right.
What I'm saying is your experiences, while they might go against societal norms, while they might bring about judgment to you, will, on the contrary, influence people to also live out that desired transformation that maybe they just felt like they couldn't do. In other words, you're empowering people through your experiences to experience.
And that's what we hope to do with this. We have said so many times,
right,
if we only reach one person, that's enough.
Yeah.
That will be worth every single week filming, coming up with content, researching, reading, living our own experience.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? We never realize who is watching.
Yeah, that's true.
And we also need to make sure that, we live this out in our daily life. We're not just here to preach to you guys. No, we both struggle. I struggle. I said it. I was struggling right before we started recording. I was struggling really heavily. And I was even I don't want to do this. I'm not good enough. I do that to myself. And that's something that I struggle with, But I want to be very clear, about that. We are not perfect. We are not qualified.
No.
Okay?
We're not qualified to talk about transformation.
We're still experiencing it.
But I think that's the beauty in us talking about transformation.
Exactly. And we hope that one of you will be able to take something from our experience and be able to, use that for your own experience.
Yeah. And that is community.
Yeah.
Living off of one another's experiences.
For sure.
But in a unique way.
Yeah.
So I think this is a perfect time to talk about our challenge then.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So I have right here a board. And it is the 120-day challenge. Here it is. The 120-day challenge. And every single day, we're not going to start here at 1. Because 1 tells us that there's a lot of time. 120 tells us that there's a countdown.
Right.
So we're not starting here. We're going to start here. And this is how many days we have to live out our transformation. And Jenny's got the rules. But from 120 to day 1, we're going to commit to this thing. And you might see this 53 circled here, and I'll touch on that in a second, because that is something that is within my own 120-day challenge.
So we did the math. When would the challenge end?
July 1st.
Okay. So first of all, I want to say that these are just parameters, right? It will be different for everyone's experience will be different, right? So Caleb is actually the one that came up with the challenge, and he said, you know, we don't need to have like anything specific, like a specific rubric.
Right.
Okay. But
So for example, if I can hop in here.
go ahead.
It's not like the 75-day hard for those of you who know
Right.
the 70. It's not like read 10 pages of a book every single day.
Yeah.
Do 2 workouts, 1 indoor, 1 outdoor. No. Sorry. I just want to preface what she meant by rubric.
Yeah. So this can look different for everyone, but he talked about having like a mental something that has to do with like our mental health, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that might look different for me than what it looks for Caleb. For me, maybe it's, you know, making sure that I journal every day. So I actually have a really hard time with writing. It comes very natural to Caleb, but for me, it doesn't. So that's something that I want to do, you know, journal every day, maybe talk about my thoughts. How did I feel today? I have a prayer journal, but I have been extremely inconsistent in writing in it. So I think that's something I want to be more intentional about, you know, but that could look different for you.
And for me, it would be meditating, because I get my brain's always on go. I'm always thinking. So to take 15 minutes to just let my brain empty.
Yeah. We talked about like a physical aspect, right? So that is going to be off days, right?
Yeah.
Some form of physical activity every single day. That for me, like for example, Monday through Friday, I'm lifting. I have a lifting schedule, and then I do cardio after I lift. Saturday and Sunday. Saturday was like an active rest day, and Sunday was my complete off day. But Caleb challenged me not to take Sunday off and still do something, whether that's, you know, doing, you know, walking or something, or, you know, I don't know, maybe playing a sport or running. You know, that will look different for Caleb.
Mm-hmm.
So what would your off day, your normal off day, what is it going to look like now?
My off day, I mean, you know, I also had a rest day, but yes, I had an off day just like you did. But again, like Jenny said, for 120 days, there's no rest day. For 4 months, commit to no rest day. After 120 days is up, the rest day might be something that you go back to. But this is a 120-day full commitment to transformation. No off days, 7 days a week, grinding for 4 months to see this full cycle of transformation happen in a 120-day period.
Yeah. We talked about not having any cheat meals, so making sure that we eat well, just like how they ate in the Bible, how Daniel eats, you know, focusing on whole foods.
For 120 days.
For 120 days. Maybe there's even like an educational aspect to this, so it could mean reading a book. To me, it is absolute torture to read. I know.
I don't understand. Look.
I know. Like, I want to get into reading so bad, but I have the attention of like a squirrel. So
glad you said squirrel, because I was about to say squirrel.
you were? Yeah. And so I'll read a page and then my mind goes elsewhere. And so maybe I can pivot. Maybe I can listen to an audiobook. I don't know. I got to figure that part out. If any of you have some suggestions for me, I would greatly appreciate
just leave it in the
those.
comments.
Yes. But that's something that I want to challenge myself. So I'm going to challenge myself to finish one book every 30 days. So we have 4 30 days, right? So for the month of March, I'm going to finally commit to finish reading Atomic Habits.
Good.
Because I have tried to sit down and read it so many times, and I always find an excuse or something else takes my attention away. I have a bunch of other books, but if you guys have any other books that you're like, you have to read this, please leave it in the comments. I think that's it for me. Is there another aspect that we added?
No, that was it. So to recap, this 120-day challenge is a 120-day commitment to transformation with that entails no off days.
So there's a physical aspect, a mental
health
aspect, right?
An educational point, and a holistic food.
Right.
For 120 days. That's what we're going to commit to.
Yep.
And the holistic foods is not for, like, if your transformation does not look like physical health, that's not what Whole Foods has so many more benefits,
right,
than physical well-being. I want to preface that, like, the things that Whole Foods brings to your brain, the development of gray matter, the development of allowing your body to naturally produce transmitters that enhance your happiness and your desire for discipline. That's what Whole Foods is also beneficial for. So this isn't just for physical health,
right,
you know. But yes, this is a 120-day journey that commits to the mental health side of things, the physical well-being, the educational, and the healthy eating side of things, so that we can commit to this strong discipline that is transformation.
and experience.
Yes, and experience. So, the countdown begins. Would you like to do the honors?
Well, if I can find the... Oh, can you get it? The marker? Okay. So are we crossing off, like X?
I was thinking erasing, but we can X.
Oh, okay.
Just...
You're going to erase it? Okay.
But you're doing
no,
the
I like
honors.
that. I like it. We'll do it. Go ahead. All right. There we go.
119 days left.
119 days.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you didn't tell us about the 53.
Yes. So, this 53 is circled because in this time of transformation, which for me is going to just develop a better body composition. That's going to be my first 120-day challenge. Day 53 is the day that I graduate.
With?
A master's in social work with an emphasis in mental health and substance abuse therapy.
Nice.
Well, not the therapy part, but it just kind of... it's weird to say a master's in social work with an emphasis in clinical and substance use. That just sounds weird to me. I feel like I got to throw the therapy at the end so that it like finishes
your degree will...
My degree will read a master's in social work with a... I guess it won't say specialization, but I don't really know what it'll say, but it is a specialization in clinical and substance use. So
Awesome.
But that is what I'll graduate with on day 53. Or not, I guess it won't be day 53, whatever 120 to 53 is.
Yeah, my
math
mental math is...
not there.
No, it's not there.
And that's not going to be something I transform in. So,
yeah.
But yes, so
we're going to do our very best to be posting our journey on a weekly basis.
We are going to be publicizing our journey to go along with your journey. It'll come in the form of stories on Instagram. It'll come in the form of weekly posts. And we just want to show you that we too are committed to this journey of transformation. And so for the next 120 days, just like you all, we're going to be getting after it.
Yes, we are.
So we've come a long way, but we've got a long way to go. So the road to transformation continues with an emphasis on 120 days.
Let's go!
Let's get it.